Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Chess with Konstantin. Today on the Fun of Attack, we are going to be talking about one of my favorite kinds of tactics, the double check. The double check, just as the name implies, means that the opponent's king is in check from more than one piece at the same time. And the reason why you'd want to do a double check is because you get an extra move. Normally, when a check occurs, you can do one of three things to avoid it, and that is capturing the piece that's giving you the check, or blocking the check from happening, and which is possible in every case except when you're in check from a knight. And finally, you can move your king out of the check. But if the check is from two pieces at the same time, then neither blocking nor capturing the offending piece is possible, and you only can move the king. So essentially, putting your opponent in double check means you get an extra move, which very often gives you a decisive advantage. Let's take a look at this game, which actually this position was from an actual game that was played by two very famous world-class players at that time in 1910, Reti and Tartakover, both chess legends in their own right, who have several openings named after them. And Reti was playing white here, so go ahead and pause the video, keeping in mind what I just told you about double checks, and see if in this very famous classical position you can see what is the correct move to win the game for white. Go ahead and do that now. Welcome back. If you found the spectacular queen sacrifice, then congratulations, you are right on the right track. If you want to just enjoy the video, indeed the correct move here is queen to d8 check. Naturally, this queen is being sacrificed and it must be taken, so king takes d8 is forced. And now we have a very nice move, and I hope you've found not just the queen sacrifice, but actually the follow-up move. And although there are two ways to perform the double check here, the correct one is bishop to g5 double check. But Konstantin, you might say, black can actually run away here to two different squares. Well, take a look at each one of those in turn. Now, if black runs to e8, you simply have rook to d8 checkmate. But what if the black's king actually runs to c7? Well, obviously there's no longer checkmate with the rook here. But bishop to d8 is also a checkmate. Because it's impossible to capture the bishop and it's impossible to move the king to any of these squares because the d-file is covered by the rook. This is a very famous example for why double checks are amazing and why you should always kind of keep a lookout for them. But now let's take a look at a much more complex example. Now in this example it's actually black to move. And in this position, with black to move, black just played the move rook takes c3. If you feel like it, you should pause the video and really appreciate the depth and the inventiveness of the player playing black here. To try to force a draw in this position. The idea is, of course, that black was behind on material and also had a disadvantageous position of the king. And the idea behind this move is to force a draw. But how? Well, the idea is if white were to capture this rook, which I'm sure that 95%, maybe 99% of the people would do here. After actually pawn takes rook, you have knight takes a2 with check. And here, white can indeed run to the queen side. But I want you to go ahead and set up this position on your board at home and try to find why it's a horrible idea for white to try to run to the queen side. Really, you should be discovering that on your own, because that's how you get better at chess. But let's take a look at what happens if white decides to run to the center instead. And we have, let's say, king d2. Here, the opponent, the person playing with the black pieces, came up with a wonderful, very deep sacrifice and a brilliant move. Knight takes c3. It's of course a very strong move. The knight has to be taken. This knight is way too active. It's threatening to win the queen. It's threatening to capture the rook. It has indirect checkmate threats. It has discovered threats after the bishop can come to b4. So this knight is much too dangerous to be left alive and must be captured. So after knight is captured by the king, then we even have immediate bishop sacrifice afterwards. Bishop b4 check. And this bishop again has to be captured, because if the king were to run away, for example, to b2, then you have a very quick checkmate coming with, well, let me just show you. The queen comes here with queen to a2, and after the king goes here, then obviously this will be checkmate with queen to a1. So when the bishop is offered here, right after you sacrifice the knight, the bishop also has to be taken. And after we have the move capturing the bishop on b4, then black can simply force a draw through repetition. See if you can find that. It's very easy. You just chase the king around the board with queen to c4 and queen to a2. So this can be repeated. If the king were to try to come to a5, for example, that is a horrible idea, and I will let you discover why this idea is bad on your own. It's actually a very easy to find mate. It's a mate in one. It's very embarrassing, and but you should know that this is not possible. So this was really a brilliant calculation by the black player, the player playing black pieces. Unfortunately, these sacrifices didn't work out, because white has a win here, believe it or not, after this rook leaves the defense of the back rank and captures the piece. With the idea of what we just covered, I want you to pause the video and give yourself just a couple of minutes. See if you can find the correct moves for white that win this game after rook captures on c3. Go ahead and please do that now. Welcome back. Of course, today's lesson is the theme of double checks, and because we just covered a much simpler example of this, I'm sure that you were able to find the simple move queen to d8 check. In this position, of course, the queen has to be captured. So we have queen, king takes d8, and now the double check comes into play with knight to e6 check. And believe it or not, this is actually a mate in 4 moves. No matter where black runs in this position, he will be checkmated. So for example, and in your head you should kind of rule out these possibilities one at a time. So the easiest possibility is if black were to run here to c8, you just have a maiden one after rook to d8, checkmate. The reason being, of course, that running to c7 is impossible due to the knight. And, of course, king to e8 and king to e7 are equally losing. In the event of king to e8, we have the move knight takes g7 check. It is a knight sacrifice in order to open up this rook file with tempo. So after the knight is captured with bishop takes g7, you simply have bishop to g5 check, and the check is from the rook that was opened up in an accelerated way. But more importantly, the threat is rook to d8 checkmate, and it's a threat that cannot be stopped. No matter what black does here, black will be checkmated on the back rank. So running to e8 is impossible. And running to e7 is equally impossible, because after king e7, then we have bishop to g5 with check. And after f6, which is forced, now we have a very nice move, knight to d8 check from the rook. So it's called a discovered check. Notice that by moving the knight to d8, we are now covering the escape squares. So the king can no longer run to the safe f7 square. And here, to prevent checkmate, black can only try to interpose pieces in between the rook and the king. Okay, you can sacrifice the rook, you can sacrifice the queen, but in the end, black will be checkmated on this e-file. Quite a spectacular combination that I hope proves to you the power of this idea of having a double check. And I hope you enjoyed this wonderful tactical theme. Of course, not capturing the rook here, but sacrificing the queen. And I hope you keep a lookout for double checks in your own games. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful New Year's holidays. Konstantin out.